The janitor who took down the black belt. Who is she? The Westbrook Martial Arts Academy sat tucked between a pawn shop and a faded laundromat in a forgotten corner of Austin, Texas. Inside, fluorescent lights flickered above a sea of blue and red mats, and trophies gathered dust on the shelves. The academy was small but proud, home to local champions, weekend warriors, and teenage hopefuls training to be something more. On this particular Saturday, the gym buzzed with energy. It was demo day, a time for the advanced students to show off, instructors to impress watching parents, and maybe even a scout or two to take notice. Everyone who mattered was there. Everyone except the woman no one really noticed. Her name was Lynn Tran, though to most, she was just the cleaning lady. At 44, she was small and unassuming, with jet black hair pulled into a tight braid and dark eyes that rarely met anyone else's. She moved like smoke, quiet, invisible, efficient. No one knew she'd been a refugee. No one knew about the life she'd once lived in Vietnam, or the career in competitive martial arts she'd walked away from decades ago. She was just the woman with the mop. As the crowd clapped for a flashy spinning kick from one of the black belts, Lynn stood by the entrance, mop still dripping suds onto the floor, her gray sweatshirt stained from years of bleach and labor. She had planned to sneak out once the demo began, but her son, Evan Tran, 17, was one of the performers today. He didn't know how far his mother had come to get him here. He didn't know the fire she still carried inside her. "Hey! You!" a voice rang out. The laughter came fast, sharp as broken glass. Lynn looked up to see Zach, the Hammer Douglas, a cocky 20-something instructor with a swagger that filled every room he entered. A former regional champion, Zach loved two things: the sound of his own voice and an audience to laugh at his jokes. "You gonna mop up after we kick ass, or you want to show us some moves?" he sneered, his GI crisp and white, his arms raised in mock challenge. The crowd burst into chuckles. Parents smiled uncomfortably. A few students turned away, unsure whether to laugh or intervene. Lynn froze, not out of fear, but something else, something ancient that lived deep in her spine. Her grip tightened around the mop handle. "Come on!" Zach taunted again, pointing. "Let's see what the janitorial department's got." The gym went quiet. Lynn blinked slowly, her face unreadable. Then, with terrifying calm, she leaned the mop against the wall. For the first time in years, she let her sleeves slide back just a bit, exposing faint scars across her wrists, evidence of a past she never spoke of. She walked onto the mat. Zach laughed, raising his hands again like it was all a game. "Go easy on me, Grandma." She bowed. It was a small gesture, but it sent a ripple through the room. Two older instructors at the back of the gym straightened in their seats. Lynn's stance wasn't the imitation of a martial arts enthusiast. It was exact, balanced, lethal. Zach jabbed casually, expecting a flinch. Lynn blocked it with surgical precision. His smile faded. He swung harder, a snap kick aimed at her side. She pivoted, caught his leg, and with a single fluid motion swept him off his feet. He slammed into the mat. The sound echoed through the stunned gym. No one clapped. No one moved. Zach looked up, humiliated, eyes wide with disbelief. Lynn offered her hand to help him up. He hesitated, then took it. When he stood, he bowed, but this time, it was real. Someone in the back whispered, "Who the hell is she?" A voice from the side replied, "That's Evan's mom." And then the silence shattered into applause. Not the polite, nervous kind, but something more reverent. They had seen something real. Lynn didn't smile. She just nodded, retrieved her mop, and disappeared into the back hallway. That night, Zach Douglas sat alone in the Westbrook Academy locker room, staring at the dent in his pride. His ego throbbed worse than his elbow. Word of the janitor fight had already spread online. Some kid had filmed it, and now he was getting tagged in videos captioned, "Zach gets wrecked by cleaning lady." He'd spent years building his name, his brand. Now, a 5'0" Vietnamese woman had dismantled him like she was swatting a fly. "Who even is she?" he muttered, slamming his locker shut. He didn't know the answer, but he was determined to get even. The next day was quiet. Too quiet. Lynn Tran returned to the academy early as usual, before the sun crested the Texas horizon. She found the mop bucket already out, water spilled across the floor like someone had tried to set a trap. A chill ran down her spine. Something was off. She moved to the main mat room and froze. Scrawled across the mirrors in red spray paint were the words, "Go back to where you came from." Her fingers curled into fists. This wasn't just about bruised pride anymore. It was something darker. She didn't report it. She cleaned it up. But she knew it wouldn't stop there. Zach didn't plan on getting caught, but anger doesn't make smart decisions. He'd snuck in, defaced the mirrors, and left, all while trying to look tough in front of his buddies from a local MMA club. But that wasn't enough. He wanted a rematch. A real one. Public. Brutal. So he came back, 3 days later, during a weekend sparring exhibition, conveniently scheduled by the Academy to capitalize on the unexpected buzz Lynn had brought. The gym was packed. Students, parents, even local press with cameras. The head instructor had invited Lynn, curious about her background, but also intrigued by the Academy's sudden spotlight. She wasn't in her mop gear this time. She wore a plain gray GI tied tightly around her waist. She looked even smaller now, framed against the wide expanse of matte and fluorescent light. Evan stood to the side, stunned to see his mom step into the ring. Today's exhibition match will be between Zach Douglas and Miss Tran, the announcer said, hesitating for a beat like he wasn't sure whether it was a joke. Zach swaggered in, teeth bared. This time he wasn't going easy. This time he had a plan. They bowed. The room quieted. The bell rang. Zach attacked fast and hard, hoping to end it quickly. His foot lashed out, aiming for her ribs. Lynn blocked it with a sharp downward sweep, then danced out of reach. Zach followed with a flurry of punches. One clipped her cheek. A red mark bloomed. Evan flinched. Zach smiled. He went for a spinning elbow, flashy and dangerous, but Lynn ducked under it. Her counter was fast and clean. A palm strike to the diaphragm, a sweep, and Zach hit the mat again. The crowd gasped. He growled, face red, as he scrambled to his feet. Then suddenly, he did something unexpected. Illegal. He faked a stumble, then lunged forward and bit her shoulder. Lynn cried out, staggering back. The referee blew his whistle. Chaos erupted. Evan leapt onto the mat, fury in his eyes. Coaches stormed forward, parents shouted. Zach was pulled back, screaming something incoherent, spitting like a rabid dog. Blood ran down Lynn's arm. But she didn't fall. She stood, straightened her back, faced the crowd, and bowed. The entire gym stood in silence. Then someone started clapping. Then another. And then the whole room erupted. Not in shock, but in awe. Lynn Tran didn't just win. She endured. She proved that character meant more than brute strength, that silence held power, and that dignity could outlast even the dirtiest of tactics. Zach was banned from the academy that afternoon. 2 weeks later, a letter arrived at Lynn's modest apartment. It wasn't from the academy. It was from the local university's martial arts department. They wanted her to teach, not just clean. Specifically, they offered her a position as a guest assistant instructor for their women's self-defense and combat movement classes. The letter praised her poise, her technique, and her ability to inspire. Lynn stared at the paper for a long time, then turned to Evan, who'd just come home from school. He looked at her, confused. "What's that?" She handed it to him without a word. As his eyes scanned the letter, they widened. "Mom, is this real?" She finally smiled. "Do you think I should accept?" She asked quietly. He laughed. "Mom, they're lucky you're not charging them to be there." 2 months later, Lynn Tran stepped onto the campus of Lone Star University, a modern, sprawling institution nestled in the heart of Austin, Texas. The sun beat down on the pale concrete buildings, but Lynn barely noticed the heat. She walked through the courtyard like a ghost with purpose, dressed in a crisp white blouse and black slacks, hair tied back. Her gi was folded neatly in her canvas bag. She looked like any other faculty member, but inside, her nerves rattled like loose screws in a machine. The martial arts department was located in the Recreation Sciences Hall, a 2-story complex with glass-paneled gyms and polished wood-floored studios. Her name was already on the schedule outside Studio 2. Assistant Instructor, Lynn Tran, Women's Self-Defense, Tuesdays and Thursdays. Her first class was packed. Some were students seeking extra credit. Others were women who had seen the viral video of the janitor defeating a fighter twice her size. A few clearly came out of curiosity, wanting to know if it was all staged. Lynn said little as she bowed in and began class. Her movements spoke for her. Every kick, every block, every subtle shift of weight told a story, A lifetime of discipline buried beneath quiet smiles. Within 15 minutes, even the skeptics leaned forward, trying to catch every detail. By the end, they clapped for her like she was a celebrity. That night, as she sat with Evan at their small kitchen table, he asked the question he hadn't dared before. Mom, where'd you learn all that? Lynn paused, sipping her tea. Her eyes drifted to the window, toward the city lights beyond. I learned it from someone I once owed my life to, she said softly. She said no more, but someone else hadn't forgotten her past. 3 days later, Lynn opened her office door and stopped cold. On her desk sat a single envelope. No address, no stamp. Inside was a photo. Two men. In a gym. One in a white GA with a cobra tattoo across his shoulder. The other was young, barely 18, and already bruised. On the back, a message. Did you really think we wouldn't find you, Than? The name hit her like a gut punch. Than, a name she hadn't heard since the backstreets of Ho Chi Minh City. Before the warlords. Before the smuggling rings. Before she disappeared and became Lin Tran. Her hands trembled. She flipped the photo again. The man with the cobra tattoo. She recognized him. Kiet. Once a high-ranking enforcer in a southern Vietnamese crime family, she'd watched him beat a man half to death for cheating at dice. He had a scar across his left brow and dead eyes. And now he was in Texas. The next day, she didn't teach class. She asked to reschedule. Instead, she drove Evan to school herself, gave him an extra long hug, and told him to stay inside until she came back. He didn't question her. But he watched her walk away with narrowed eyes, sensing the storm in her silence. Lynn drove downtown, to the address scribbled on the back of the envelope. It led to a rundown Muay Thai gym, wedged between a pawn shop and a vape store. The lights flickered. The sign out front was half burnt out. She stepped inside, and time peeled away. The smell of sweat and bleach, the sound of bodies hitting canvas. Vietnamese shouting from the back. Then he appeared. Kiet, still bald. Still massive. Still smiling with teeth that didn't quite match. I didn't believe it when they told me, he said in perfect English. Our little Thon, hiding as a janitor? And now, a teacher? Lynn didn't flinch. What do you want? He spread his arms. What I always wanted. Loyalty. You mean fear, he laughed. Same thing, isn't it? She stepped forward. If you came here to make trouble, you picked the wrong woman. Kiet's smile dropped. Careful, little bird. You have a son now, right? The room grew colder. Before he could blink, Lynn had crossed the space between them, a sharp twist of her heel, a knife hand to his throat. He staggered, coughing. His men jumped forward, but stopped when Kiet raised a hand. He grinned through the pain. I missed this fire, he rasped. But don't worry, I didn't come to fight, I came to invite. There's a tournament in 2 weeks, underground, old names, big money, win, and I walk away. She didn't respond. He leaned closer. Lose, and I remind your son who his mother used to be. That night, she stood over Evan's bed, watching him sleep. Her hands were still trembling. She hadn't fought like that in years. But maybe it was time. Not for herself. For Evan. For the quiet life she had built. For the right to leave behind the darkness that once swallowed her whole. She turned off the light, walked to her room, and opened the old wooden chest under her bed. Inside was a black belt, frayed and faded, and beneath it, a folded photo of a girl with blood on her knuckles, standing barefoot in a street ring in Saigon, surrounded by cheering strangers. Than was still there. And she was ready to fight. The warehouse sat on the edge of Austin's industrial district, cloaked in shadows and cigarette smoke. From the outside, it looked abandoned, boarded up windows, rusted fences, and a parking lot full of anonymous cars. But inside, the place thrummed with adrenaline. It was fight night. And Lin Tran, once Than, the black cobra of Ho Chi Minh, was back in the ring. She entered through the back, hood up, jive folded under one arm, sneakers silent on the cracked concrete. Every step was measured, controlled. Her breathing was calm, but her pulse pounded in her ears. Kiet's tournament wasn't sanctioned. There were no rules, no cameras, no weight classes. Just cash, bets, and blood. The crowd was packed tight. Businessmen in suits, gang members, influencers whispering into phones. Everyone here had something to gain or lose. Lynn passed a hallway stacked with crates and saw fighters warming up. Men with cauliflower ears. Women with tattoos and taped knuckles. She recognized none of them. Good. She preferred it that way. Kiet met her in the center ring, arms folded. You showed up, he said with a crooked grin. I said I would. He nodded toward the crowd. They're hungry for a show. And you're the legend they forgot. Lynn didn't blink. Then let's remind them. Her first opponent was a towering woman from Belarus. Ex-Spetsnaz, they said. Hands like bricks, shoulders like a truck. The bell rang and she came charging, all brute force and fury. Lynn didn't move. She waited. When the punch came, Lynn slipped to the side, turned and dropped low, sweeping the woman's legs out from under her. The crowd gasped. The Belarusian rose, snarling. She launched a high kick. Lynn caught it, spun, and delivered a brutal elbow to the thigh. 10 seconds later, it was over. The woman lay groaning on the mat. The crowd erupted. Fight after fight. Lynn carved a path through the bracket. A Brazilian capoeira master, a Korean judo champion, a brutal kickboxer from New Jersey who nearly broke her rib. Each one pushed her to the edge, but none of them broke her. She fought not just to win, but to protect, to keep Evan safe, to bury the past once and for all. Between rounds, she texted Evan, "Studying going okay?" His reply was simple, "You got this, Mom." She read it twice before tucking her phone away. The final match came just before midnight, and of course, Keat was waiting. He stepped into the ring in a black GI, barefoot, smiling. The cobra tattoo on his shoulder gleamed with sweat. "I've been waiting for this," he said. Lynn stared at him from across the ring. "You always did like an audience." The bell rang. He struck first, a spinning back kick, fast, vicious. Lynn ducked under it, was countered with a hook to the ribs. He grunted but didn't fall. His size gave him reach, his anger gave him speed. But Lynn had something deeper. Clarity. She dodged, parried, blocked. Every movement was the product of years spent surviving on the streets, in silence, in exile. Kiet tried to grab her throat. She twisted, slid under his arm, and launched a crushing sidekick to his knee. He staggered. She didn't wait. A blur of fists, elbows, and knees rained down on him, until finally, with one final heel kick to the temple, he crumpled. Silence fell. Then the crowd roared. But Lynn wasn't looking at them. She stared at Kiet, panting, waiting for him to rise. He didn't. Later, as she collected her things, a man in a blazer approached her. Older. Sharp. "You're not just a fighter," he said. "You're a story." Lynn raised an eyebrow. He handed her a card. Midwest Institute of Tactical Training, Director of Programs. "We run self-defense and CQB seminars across the country," he said. "Veterans, police, single mothers. You'd be perfect." Lynn studied the card. "I'll think about it." He smiled. "Just don't disappear again, Miss Tran." At home, Evan was waiting on the couch. His textbooks lay forgotten. He looked up as she walked in, her clothes sweaty, a bruise blooming near her collarbone. "You okay?" he asked. She nodded. "One." "Thought so," he grinned. She sat beside him and leaned back. After a moment, he asked, "You gonna tell me who you really were?" She hesitated, then said quietly, "Someday." And maybe she would. But for now, the shadows had lost their grip. Her past no longer owned her. She was Lynn Tran. Mother, fighter, teacher. And tomorrow, she would return to campus. Not to hide, but to lead. A month had passed since the underground fight. The bruises had faded, but the name Lynn Tran had begun to echo in unexpected places. On martial arts forums, in whispered rumors at gyms, even in university hallways. But Lynn wasn't chasing fame. Not anymore. She had accepted the offer. Now, every Tuesday and Thursday evening, she walked into the tactical training center on the outskirts of town. Not as a shadow, not as a ghost from the past, but as an instructor. Front stance, palm strike, again. Her voice echoed through the training mats, calm but firm. 20 students, mostly women, a few young men, a retired Marine, moved in rhythm with her commands. They didn't know her whole story, just enough to respect her. Evan stood by the door, finishing his homework, watching his mom transform the room with every motion. He had never seen her like this, powerful, commanding, centered, and she had never felt more alive. Or einer. One evening after class ended, Lynn stayed behind to clean the mats. The others filtered out, chatting and laughing. She enjoyed the quiet after. Until a familiar figure stepped through the door. Agent Carter. Same sharp eyes, same pressed suit. But this time, he didn't carry suspicion, just a manila folder. Lynn straightened. "Thought I told you I was done." He raised an eyebrow. "And yet here you are." Doing what we always knew you could. She didn't respond. He set the folder on a bench. We've been monitoring chatter from overseas. Word of your reappearance has traveled further than we expected. Lynn froze. Carter opened the folder. Inside were photos, grainy surveillance shots. A man in dark clothes boarding a plane in Manila. A tattoo on his wrist, same syndicate Keat once belonged to. They think you took out one of their leaders, Carter said, and they're looking for who did it. Lynn shut the folder. I didn't take him out, she said. I won a fight. Carter nodded slowly. That distinction won't matter to them. That night, Lynn didn't sleep much. She watched Evan snore on the couch, one arm slung over his textbook. His hair had grown out. His jaw was getting sharper. He was becoming a man. And still she was dragging shadows behind her. She could run again, change names, move cities, but not this time. 2 days later, she met with the institute director. I need to increase the security protocols, she told him, and I'd like to start a women's advanced defense course, free of charge, focused on real-world scenarios. He raised an eyebrow. Is this about your past? She didn't blink. It's about the future. He nodded. Do what you need. Thors. Weeks passed. The new class filled up fast. Word spread. Lynn added Krav Maga, weapons disarmament, situational awareness. Her students grew stronger, more confident, safer. But one night after class, as Lynn walked to her car, she felt it. A presence. She turned. A man stood across the lot, thin, hoodie up, hands in his pockets, watching. She didn't hesitate, dropped her bag, moved like a blade. But when she reached him, he smiled. Message from Manila, he whispered in a thick accent. They know where you are. Then he was gone. Lynn stood in the parking lot, pulse steady, eyes scanning the dark. She could run again, or she could fight. This time, she chose neither. She went home, kissed Evan on the forehead, and stayed up writing letters to the Institute, to Agent Carter, to 3 of her students she knew she could trust. She was preparing, because the fight wasn't over. But now she had an army behind her. A community. A name. And this time they'd have to come through all of it to reach her.